Good morning. Today we're going to work on the distributive property and solving two-step equations. So first, we spoke about this the other day. The distributive property is going to be our first step. So this is step number one. And then we're going to have a resulting two-step equation. And just to remind you, when we work with solving equations, we want to use PEMDAS backward. So we're going to work with getting rid of the constant that's being added or subtracted. So we're going to use the opposite of what we see. And then we're going to go on and work with multiplication and division. So we're either going to multiply if we see division or divide if we see multiplication. So that would be our added second step, and this is our added third step. So this is a three-step process. So first we use a distributive property. 2 times x would be 2x. 2 times positive 3, we're using this as a positive, is a positive 6. And then the 10 is just kind of hanging out waiting for that process for us to distribute. Now we're going to go on and we're going to look for a number that's being added or subtracted. And so I see that we're adding 6. So I'm going to take away 6 on both sides. That's my first solving step, but my second step overall. That eliminates my 6's. And then I drop down what's left over, which is 2x. And then on the other side, 10 take away 6 is 4. And now my second solving step is if I look at side by side, that means multiply, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is dividing. So I'm going to divide by 2 and divide by 2. So our final answer is x equals 2. And if I look back up the original problem, I see 2 times x, and I now think my x value is 2, and then I'm going to add 3 to that. So I'm using this. And inside the parentheses, now that I have numbers, I can just go ahead and add that. So I now have 2 times 5. And sure enough, on the other side, the answer says it's 10. So I just wanted to show you a brief check. Now what I'd like you to do is try number 2 on your own. So in number 2, after you use the distributive property, what would be the resulting equation? So you would have 5x plus 15 equals 20. What solving step should you do next? We're going to take away 15 since we see adding 15. And that's going to leave us with 5x on this side and 5 on this side. What is our final solving step? Divide by 5, divide by 5, and the final answer is x equals 1. So let's go on to equation number 3. Equation number 3 has a negative coefficient, as a negative number out in front. And so when I use the distributive property, I have to be really very conscious of this. So I'm going to start taking negative 6 times x. So negative 6 times x. Then I'm going to go back and take negative 6 times positive 4. So this is negative 6 times positive 4. So negative 6 times x would be negative 6x. And now here's where I need to be very thoughtful. I have a negative times a positive. So I want to go back and remind myself when I have a negative times a positive, when Margar's half awake, she's mad. So it's going to be a negative 24. And I could write that as plus negative 24, but that mixture of signs is going to cause confusion. So I'm going to choose to write that instead of plus negative 24. I'm going to choose to write it as minus 24. That has the same meaning in math. It's just going to be easier now when I go to do my next solving step. So next, I'm going to take away the constant, and I'm going to look for a number that's being added or subtracted. So I see that I'm subtracting 24, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to add 24 on both sides. And the result is going to be negative 6x. And when I add 24 on this side, I'm going to get 60. And now I see side by side, which means multiply. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is to divide. So I'm going to divide by 6. Ooh, I'm going to divide by negative 6 on both sides. So those signs all the way through, I have to be very conscious of them. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. I definitely want to use a negative here because I want a positive x value left over. And here I have a positive 60 divided by a negative 6, so I'm going to get a negative answer, so it's negative 10. So would you please try problem number 4 on your own? What's the resulting equation after you distribute? So negative 3x when we multiply negative 3 times x, and negative 3 times positive 2 is negative 6. So here's the resulting equation. What is our first solving step? We will add 6 to both sides, leaving negative 3x equals 18. And our final solving step is to do what? We divide by negative 3, and our end result is x equals negative 6. So I'd like you to skip over to equation number 7. In problem number 7, we see a negative coefficient out front. We also see a minus 2 inside. So this is very, very common to make an error on these type of problems. So let's be very careful. We're going to start and we're going to think through this process. We have a negative 7 times n. Problem was very similar to the last one we did. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different. We have a negative 7 times a negative 2. So negative 7 times negative 2. So negative 7 times n would give me negative 7n. But right here, this is where I have to be very careful. I have a negative 7 times a negative 2, and when Margar's fast asleep, she's happy. So this is going to be a positive answer, and 7 times 2 is 14. One of the most common errors to just drop down this sign. So when we have a negative out front and a negative inside the parentheses, that's where we have to be very diligent and very careful with those signs. So this is the resulting two-step equation. Now we're going to do our solving steps. So we're going to take away 14. Since we see adding 14, we do the opposite of what we see, cancels out, and that's going to leave us with negative 7n on this side, and 28 minus 14 would be 14. And now, once again, I have to be really careful with my integer sign. Since I'm multiplying by a negative 7, I need to divide by a negative 7. Those cancel out, leaving n equals negative 2. Again, a positive 14 divided by a negative 7 is a negative answer. So would you now please try number 8 on your own? What is the result when I use the distributive property? What resulting two-step equation is left? Negative 4 times negative 5 gives us a positive 20. Now you're ready to solve. Can you please tell me the final answer after you solve this? After our first solving step, we are down to this final step, and so we should have x equals 40 divided by negative 4 is negative 10. Would you please go to number 10? This is our final type of problem. Sometimes when students see problems written what looks like backwards, that's uncomfortable. And so one of the ways we can deal with this is to shift everything in the order and exactly as written to the other side. So I would write 3 parentheses x minus 3. That's exactly as given. And I'm going to shift this over to the right side. So if you're uncomfortable with how it's written, that's an option. But right now I want to show you that you can actually solve it as is. So I'm going to use the distributive property, and this time I have to start on my right side because that's where the variable is. So I'm going to start 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. So that ended up on my right side, and on my left side is 30. So now I'm going to continue, but I must start on the side that has the variable. So my solving step would be to add 9, because I always want to get rid of the constant, the number that's being added. So on my left side, I now have 39, and on my right side, these eliminate, giving me 3x. So once again, in order to solve, I start with the side that has the variable. 3 times x, I'm going to undo that by dividing by 3 on both sides. Now my left side has the answer of 13, and on the right side, I've eliminated those numbers, leaving my variable, isolating the variable. So I'd like you to try equation 11 on your own. That's our last one for today. If you left it written as is instead of switching sides, please tell me what the resulting equation would look like. This is what it would look like if we left it without switching sides. Let's go ahead and try to solve it as is. We're going to build our wall. What do we do first? We need to take away 45 on both sides, leaving 55 on the left and 5n on the right. What's our final solving step? We divide by 5 on both sides, and the result is 11 equals n, or n equals 11 if you decide to switch sides. Thank you so much, and you have a great afternoon.